Fort San Pedro was built in 1565 by the order of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi. When Miguel Lopez de Legazpi ordered to build Fort San Pedro, it stands to protect all the natives here against the Moro raiders. And since then, it has become the military strategic point of the Spaniards during the time. I'm Albert Vistil III. I'm Executive Director of Fort San Pedro, the oldest and the smallest tri-bastion fort here in the Philippines. This is everything where it all began. It stands at the strategic point where, facing the Mactan Island, the Fort San Pedro stands at the heart, the center of the Cebu city to the mainland. Fort San Pedro stands for so many years after the Spaniards left in 1898, and then the Americans came in 1890 until the Japanese forces came in the Second World War in 1942. After the war, the Fort San Pedro was turned into a different LGUs, or local government unit offices, and it became a garden club, a zoo. After the Cebu Zoo Authority left in 1973, Fort San Pedro was empty. It became a national museum in the 1980s until in the 1998. Fort San Pedro itself is a treasure of way back then. It stands for protection, for unity, for forces, for the oneness of the Filipino people, where this has become the signifying spot where the people had started since then until today. The most symbolic thing, the name itself is Fort San Pedro. The huge stones, mortars, where it stands as protection. The fortress itself is the most significant thing. As you go up there, you can see some cannons where it used during the war. When the Philippine Tourism Authority took over, they used Fort San Pedro as a museum. They took care, the cleanliness, the protection of the stones for not touching them. It remained standing for what it is since then until in 1998, the Philippine Tourism Authority turned Fort San Pedro to Cebu City Government. And since then until today, the Cebu City Government is the one taking care of Fort San Pedro under the protection of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Fort San Pedro was built in 1565. Some big stones, all coral stones and mortars pile up together and make it stronger. Some huge woods and logs, as you can see at my back there, the Cuerpo de Guardia stands for. Fort San Pedro, the name itself, it has become a symbol of freedom to us. The Filipinos fought for freedoms. They fought for their own will until the Americans came in, the Japanese came in. Filipinos stands as strong as ever until today. And Fort San Pedro, being one of its protection, one of its home of bravery, and it stands until today. After the war, there were peace, and the trade, the commerce, the industry growing up. Although it faced a lot of trials during the time, and today Filipino people are enjoying the serenity, the peace. We are all enjoying, and we have Fort San Pedro as the history of yesterday. After the Spaniards, the Americans, the Japanese, and then continually we accepted how it is and how it was, and until today we enjoyed it and we preserve the historical place.
good morning. Welcome to Cebu, Port San Pedro.
This is where it all began. The Spanish colonization, Cebu is the standing point of everything, and today we enjoyed it from them. We learned a lot, not only from the Spaniards, but the Americans and the war itself in Second World War II. We learned a lot, and we stand strong as Filipino as we are, and we enjoyed everything, though there was pain, there was battle, there was struggle in our hearts. This stands for as who we are, and this is the beginning of another piece of our lives. So we have to enjoy, we have to embrace everything, and Fort San Pedro is the backbone of everything. In behalf of Cebu City Government, I would like to say thank you, and I would like to invite all of you to come over to Fort San Pedro, Cebu, and visit Fort San Pedro and see how beautiful Cebu and Fort San Pedro. Balik Cebu sa Fort San Pedro, where history comes to life.